That's a loud noise.
Evening, folks.
Hello.
Robert, was that you going by in the white SUV the other night? Robert Love?
Yeah, that was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Didn't recognize your car. I'm sorry. That was
I've had that thing forever
okay.
Where's the baby, Bob?
in my wife's arms, about to be passed to me because he's too heavy for him.
Mayor Heath, is it safe to Zoom and drive?
I'm not driving.
Oh, okay.
My husband's driving. I'm
Oh,
a
okay.
passenger.
Got it.
But at least he's not drinking and driving, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, neighbor. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, neighbor. uh,
Craig, will you be speaking for the city relative to this rezoning request?
I believe I will, yes.
Okay, okay. There we are.
Mr. Chairman, if someone is missing tonight, can the baby vote?
No, I'm afraid not. No.
Yeah, just checking.
She can mail in her ballot and we'll consider it when it gets here, so. Okay, my computer clock says it's 7 o'clock. We will call to order this special meeting, September 24th of the Adrian City Planning Commission. We will defer looking at last meeting's minutes until our October meeting. And we will start right off with case number 20044, which is a request for rezoning at 1610 and 1900 West Beecher. These are properties that the city owns, and the request has come from them. Just as a quick review, as we consider any rezoning, any action we take will be in the form of a recommendation to the City Commission. And the criteria that we use in making a recommendation regarding rezoning includes the following. What identifiable conditions related to the application have changed and would therefore justify the proposed change in zoning? Are there any precedents that would be created by either approving or denying the petition, and what are the possible effects of those precedents? What is the impact on the ability of the city and other governmental units to provide adequate public services? Does the requested change negatively affect environmental conditions or the value of surrounding properties? And what is the ability of the property in question to be put to a reasonable economic use as it is presently zoned? These are the criteria upon what any decision would be based. In order to consider evidence for or against the request, we will conduct a public hearing in which we will review the presented evidence. We'll hear first from the petitioner or the representative. Then we will review any written comments or documentation received from the public. We will then hear comments from the public either in favor of or in opposition to the proposed change. And we will also consider recommendations and comments from the city's planning staff. I should point out that this is both a request for both of these properties to be zoned to I-1, light industrial, and to also have them included in the west side marijuana overlay zone. With that said, I understand that Mr. Elliott is going to speak for the city in this case, and so Greg, tell us what you'd like to tell us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At their meeting on September 8th of this year, the City Commission passed a resolution initiating the rezoning of this property from the existing districts that you described, B2 and RT, to I1, which is light industrial, and for inclusion in the west side marijuana overlay. And the reason for that, the immediate reason for that, is a purchase agreement that we have now in effect for 20 acres of the easterly of those two parcels. And there is an outline of the parcels from our GIS attached to your report that you can refer to as I'm talking about it. So that would be at the 20 acres at the very south end of that easterly parcel. But we've had interest in the past in these parcels for marijuana facilities. We haven't had any interest in anything else on there in a fairly substantial period of time that we've owned the property. This was part of a purchase of land we call called the Marvin Farm. And the Marvins also sold us land on the south side of Beecher Street in that vicinity. Those parcels have all been sold because they were included in the Marijuana West overlay. This area was not. And our hope is that in including it in the overlay, but also the light industrial zone, that we will find a larger market for the property than we have before, build the tax base of the city, and so on. You're aware that the industrial park that we had in this vicinity, which this sort of abuts to the east, has mostly been rezoned and sold for other uses. So we don't really have an industrial park over there anymore. And this could very well become a new industrial or business park to take its place with the change in zoning. As you said, Mr. Chair, there are certain findings in your ordinance that you are required to make in making a recommendation to the City Commission. Staff, in doing the review, has gone through each of those findings and commented on them, and I'll briefly summarize those comments about each finding. In terms of changed conditions, well, I mentioned that already. The property has been unsuccessfully marketed and remained vacant for a number of years as it's currently zoned. Found no interest for B2 or RT uses out there. In contrast to the property across the street, which is zoned industrial. In fact, it's zoned I2, general industrial, and has been sold and in at least one case developed for marijuana facilities. So we're hopeful that it seems like the market is in that area, and we feel like that change of conditions is appropriate to find that finding that you need to make has been met. Number two, what are the precedents and possible effects of such precedent that might result from approval or denial? We don't believe as staff that there would be any adverse effects. The property is contiguous to other industrial zones within the city limits, as I mentioned. The south, on the other side of Beecher, is also an industrial zone. So, large tract of land that's appropriate for zoning treatment, and it is contiguous to other industrial properties. We don't think that's any sort of an adverse precedent for the area. Number three, what is the impact on the ability of the city and other governmental agencies to provide adequate public services and facilities? There is a fairly new public water main in the area. Consumers Energy is in fact building an electrical substation on the property immediately to the west of our eastern entry to the property off of Beecher. That is in fact a thing that enticed this particular user to the area because of the high energy demands or electricity demands that such uses have. As it turns out, the sewer is actually owned by Madison Township, but that's true for the property across the street as well. We treat the sewage, but the collection system flows through Madison Township, but there is public sewer available to serve the property. The city could conceivably serve it if it needed to, but there's public sewer readily available in any case. Number four, does the petition district change adversely affect environmental conditions or the value of surrounding properties? Land is farmland. It's all been farmed. There's no unique environmental natural features associated with the property. Likewise, because it has been farmland historically, there's not likely to be any negative environmental conditions associated with the property. And then finally, number five, what is the ability of the property in question to be put to a reasonable economic use in the zoning district in which it is presently located? Again, this goes to what I mentioned a couple times already, the unsuccessful efforts that the city has made in marketing the land as it's presently zoned. And so um, uh, the current zoning does not effectuate the highest and best use of this property. We feel like this zoning change, however, would. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioners, questions for Mr. Elliott?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Please go ahead.
Greg, the remaining, what, 100 and some acres in that parcel, is that correct?
It'd be about, assuming that the sale goes through, and of course the sale is contingent at this point, and they're in their due diligence period. But if those 20 acres sold, there would be approximately 130 acres left after that. What we've provided for in the purchase and sale agreement is that the eastern entry there would be reserved to our ownership for a road that would be intended to serve the further development of the property going to the north.
What's the remaining property currently zoned?
So on the eastern piece, it's zoned B2, which is community commercial, and then the western piece is RT, which is two-family residential.
Okay, so the whole parcels are currently, okay, great, thank you.
Greg, is there a problem with the western property and putting it in the overlay with the daycare that's across Sand Creek Highway?
That only applies, that separation applies only to dispensaries. And so it would, whatever the radius around the daycare is, would be excluded from use as a dispensary. But dispensaries in the overlay are only allowed in conjunction with grow facilities. So we don't feel like that's a substantial problem. It certainly wouldn't impact all the property.
It might not even be in the city either.
Yeah, I think it is, but I don't think we distinguish in our requirements for separation as it relates to dispensaries. But I don't, as I say, I don't, even though the current purchasers do hope to have a dispensary as part of their overall operation, and we did examine that in connection with property that they're purchasing, and it would not inhibit them as it relates to that property. Like I say, it would be a small portion of that property that would be excluded from only that type of facility. And again, this is we're rezoning it. The underlying zoning is going to be light industrial, so we don't necessarily conclude that all the whole property will be used for marijuana facilities, but it could be used for various business park type uses, industrial park type uses that would be appropriate in that zone.
Commissioners, any other questions? Mr. Elliott, are we, I understand that we've had some issues with odor on the property across the street, or complaints about odor. Do we anticipate that would be an issue here as well?
Well, I mean, I think as we look at these projects, there's still zoning exception uses, and evaluate their plans. We want to be careful to make sure they do have good odor control plans. There have been sort of anecdotal suggestions that odors come from Flourish across the street, but our investigations have never really revealed that, and a number of us.
Greg, I think you faded out there.
I think he's frozen.
Yeah,
disconnected.
You're frozen there. Okay. Are there other questions for Mr. Elliott when he comes back online here. Jeremy, did we receive any written comments or phone comments from anyone on this property?
No, and I had to do 300 feet around it, so it was quite a bit of note cards. I'm surprised we didn't, but we did not.
Okay. Is there
Sorry
any-
about that. If I could pick up where I left, I don't know. This
Please do.
computer seems to like to drop my Zoom meetings for some reason, but if I could pick up where I left off, a number of us even visited the flourish operation across the street during harvest time, which is the very stinkiest time that you can have for a grow facility. And even inside, the air handling was such that there were not substantial overpowering odors even inside the facility during grow time. And you could walk outside where the air is being vented out, and they have a scenting process so that it smells like, as they put it, fruity pebbles when it comes out. Yeah, you really didn't. There's different. You can cinnamon, fruity pebbles. There's different kind of odors you could choose, but we really don't. We don't find that there truly is a substantial odor problem. Now, the city commission considered, in fact, the city attorney's air pollution ordinance in discussion. Well, they discussed it at their meeting on the 21st, last Monday. And I would say that the sentiment was that, industrial land has, often some odors associated with it, depending on the type of industry, and that's just sort of the nature of the beast. But
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not concerned.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the Planning Commission on this particular request?
Hi, this is Mayor Heath. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm in my car.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I would just like to also address that about the odor. We actually had received several complaints from the surrounding townships. So we actually, the city attorney, myself, and the Madison Township supervisor went on a tour, and it was during a harvest time. Like, they were getting ready, and he felt, and we had everyone, there from Flourish walking us through, and it was very informative, and he felt like he understood it a lot more. We weren't smelling it, and he was going to be relaying that back to the citizens in Madison Township that were concerned, and he felt in a much better place after doing that, just because of the lack of smell and everything he saw that they were doing. And I will say, at least on my end, I don't know if they've been going to Greg or anybody else, but on my end, I have had no complaints since that visit, when we went on that visit with Gary Greenwand, the Madison Township supervisor. And I think it just answered a lot of those questions and alleviated all that. So the complaints about Flourish have dissipated, at least in my office, since then. So.
Well, thank you. And the only reason I asked is I had heard those comments, but probably third or fourth hand, and my response to them often was, we're surrounded by farmland, and often the fertilizer smell is more of an issue than any industrial process is. So, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to address the Planning Commission on this particular request? If there are none, we will close the public hearing portion of this matter and go to commissioner discussion. Folks, is there comments or discussion from the commissioners?
I move to approve, we rezone industrial.
We have a motion to approve. Brian, I presume that also means to include it in the west overlay zone as well.
If we can put them together, then yeah.
Yes, and they kind of go hand in hand. Doing one without the other doesn't serve the purpose. So let's take those as one issue.
Support.
And there was support from Mr. Taylor. Commissioners, now any discussion? couple of things that I would say. You know, this comes to us from the city commission, and I presume that they were generally in agreement on this request when they discussed it. Part of me says, you know, we've looked at these in the last few months and said, well, no, we're not adding anything to an overlay zone. We've had that request before, and it was just a little while ago that we took industrial property a hop, skip, and a jump from here and took it out of industrial. So part of me says, gee, well, this is a little contrary to what we're doing, but on the other hand, I understand the city's desire to sell the property and for us to improve the tax base for it being an industrial use. Just one man's opinion.
But I also think, commissioners and Mr. Chair, that not always is the property on the east side property that some potential investors want to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Although I must say that those that have been or are being renovated have done a pretty doggone good job.
Mm-hmm. Commissioners, Mr. Elliott went over the staff review and their responses to the 5 issues we need to consider. Generally, is the commission satisfied with those findings?
Yeah.
Rather than me having to repeat them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a motion
Yes.
for support on the floor for adoption of the resolution. If there's no additional discussion, Mr. Clement, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Love,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cotton,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Weatherby,
Support.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Chair Jacobitz.
Yes.
Motion approved unanimously.
Okay. Back at you, Madam Mayor. We also have just recently added to tonight's agenda a discussion of planned unit development at 510 Merrick Street. This is the city's former water plant. Is there someone here to address that particular issue? This is just for this evening. This is on our agenda simply as a presentation and discussion.
It's Mr.
Yes, sir.
It's a concept presentation. I think your PUD ordinance requires that a prospective applicant make a concept presentation to you before formally submitting, and so that's Mr. Lawley's purpose tonight in bringing this idea before you.
I was going to say, Drake, this looks like a project of yours. So why don't you give us a thumbnail sketch of what it is you're thinking of doing with it?
Well, all right. Well, first of all, Mr. Lawley is my grandfather. My name's Drake, and some of you know me. For those of you who don't, I have a video production company here in Adrian. I help a lot of our local businesses and organizations with their video needs. Lifelong resident here in Adrian, just joined the DDA, and I'm looking forward to doing whatever I can to contribute to our community. Right now, I have a basic video production facility in downtown, but I've been looking for a facility where I can expand and share space with other companies who do related things like audio production, music recording, that sort of thing. And also explore partnerships with some of our local education institutions. And so that brings us to this property here. So the property is bordered by Merrick Street, the River Raisin, and the Kiwanis Trail. It has 3 buildings on it, a large brick structure to the east, a round steel structure in the middle, and a smaller brick building to the west. So this location would be pretty ideal for my purposes because it's in a relatively peaceful area away from major roads and other sources of noise. Next, actually, yep, you're already on the slide I was going to. You're one step ahead of me here. So the property also includes a small parcel of land at the inside corner of Spring Street. I don't have any plans for that section at the moment other than having the pleasure of mowing it periodically. Next slide, please. So this is the big building. So as it stands, it's about 6,800 square feet. It has several large rooms inside, which would be suitable for video and audio studios. And these would be used not only by my company, but other companies and people in the area that need space to record. So these studios would allow for partnerships with schools in the area that don't currently have access to this level of facilities, so that the students would be able to learn about video and audio production and even have job opportunities with other companies that use this space. So right now, as you can see by that bottom slide, parts of the building are in rough shape. This very back portion actually burned earlier this year, and right now it's just an eyesore right next to the Kiwanis Trail. So my intention would be to clean this up as soon as possible so that the property can be a great looking highlight instead. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a view from the other side of the building, which also shows the burned section. We might want to scroll up one more. There we go. There we go. So this shows the other side of the burn section. It shows the work of some local artists, and there's also a nice selection of dog houses there. So if anybody would like a dog house, let me know. I might have a few. Seriously though, it's such a cool building with a lot of history behind it, and it's a shame that it's been let go, but it would be really neat to be able to preserve it and actually use it for something productive. All right, next slide, please. So this down here, this is the round metal structure that's in the middle of the property. In my line of work, we need specially constructed rooms that are sound treated for editing videos and audio. Now, these are designed to avoid extra sound coming in or going out. They shouldn't have windows, and it's best if they're a little irregularly shaped. Now, this structure actually lends itself nicely to all of those requirements, and some of the other companies that I've talked to about partnering on this facility have expressed a lot of interest in having permanent space there. Now, I've also gotten requests for a client review space, which is basically like a little miniature theater. It would have a great screen, a great sound system, and comfortable seating for a small group of people. Normally, production companies use these facilities to show projects to clients because it's a bit of a nicer presentation area than just your own personal editing room. But it could also be rented out to small groups who want to spend an evening watching a movie or a game in a private mini theater while enjoying their own food or beverages, or to business groups who want a nice space to do presentations. Next slide, please. All right, now finally, this is the little brick building at the west end of the property. It's about 900 square feet, and it's actually the building that I would start with. So I'd like to turn this into a residence with a very open floor plan so I could shoot some videos in there too if needed. This would allow me to actually live on site so I could secure the property, make it look nice while proceeding with the rest of the buildings. Next slide, please. All right, so finally, thank you for your time and consideration of this idea. I really appreciate you fitting this into your agenda on such short notice. And I just think if we're able to use this property as planned, it would be able to go from an eyesore to a real highlight in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Drake. That is a pretty exciting and big undertaking, I would think. Commissioners, any questions for Drake Lally?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions for Mr. Lally. I'm quite familiar with this project and have been privy to his thinking through this. This is just the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that I think is what we need. We've talked about this property for years. Wouldn't it be great to do something with it? And here's a local guy with a local business who I think has really got a great concept here. And I want to thank Jeremy and probably Greg as well, but for a quick phone call that I made saying, hey, how about talking to this guy about this and working through what the possibilities are. And that's, I think that's just a great sign for our planning and zoning staff to be doing that. I thought it'd be a great distillery, but I think his idea is better than mine. So Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a quick comment that I agree with Commissioner Taylor that this is great out of the box thinking. I can't wait to see this project go forward. And I would hope that when others in the community see what you're able to do with properties like that and the out of the box thinking, that more people would want to do that and would like to come forward and make similar kinds of presentations and ideas that we could consider. So great job, Drake. Love it.
Thank you, Gordon. Anybody else? Drake, we would welcome hearing more about this in the future. So please keep us informed.
Well, thank you. I most certainly will do that.
Okay.
So with that, the next step, what we'll do is we'll stay in touch, and then we'll set up a meeting, our preliminary meeting with utilities and all that kind of stuff, and we'll get this ball rolling pretty quick.
Awesome. I appreciate all of your support. Thank you.
Folks, is there any other business to come before us this evening? If there's not, we will adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting is Tuesday, October 6th. I understand that there's a ZBA meeting that night as well, just to...
Yep. So Meyer is doing a remodel of their entire storefront and the inside, as well as some of their parking lot. So there's a temporary use that we have to do for their staging areas and all their storage. So you will be seeing Meyer in front of you. It's going to be a pretty big agenda. There's quite a few site plan amendments that are going to be in front of you. So I hope to get that to you as soon as I can, but it's going to be a pretty big packet. So.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then folks, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Dr. Love.
Good night.